2 words. In most English Bibles, that is the entire verse. Jesus wept. And they may be the strangest 2 words in all 4 Gospels, because the man crying already knew, with absolute certainty, that the one he was weeping over would be breathing again before the day was out. He had said it out loud days earlier. He was not weeping because he had lost. He was weeping on his way to the greatest thing anyone in that village would ever witness. So why the tears? If he knew he was about to call a dead man out of a sealed grave, why did he stop on the road and cry? To feel how strange that is, you have to stand on that hillside. The smell reached them before the tomb did. 4 days under a Judean spring sun is enough to change the air around a grave, and everyone gathered in Bethany understood what the smell meant. They had stopped hoping. The loud wailing of the first day had worn down into the low, exhausted rhythm of people who have already accepted the worst. A man they loved was sealed behind a stone, and stone, as far as anyone there knew, was the end of the story. And then a traveler came up the road from the Jordan, and he was the one weeping. That question, why the tears, is not a modern invention. The people standing right there asked it out loud that very day, and the answer the gospel gives is far stranger and far more comforting than most of us have ever been told. So begin with the when and the where. It was early in the year that would end with a cross outside the walls of Jerusalem. The year history would later mark as around 33, though we should hold that number loosely, the way the ancients did. Tiberius ruled in distant Rome, an aging and suspicious emperor. Judea was an occupied province, held under the heavy hand of the prefect Pontius Pilate. In the temple, the high priest was Joseph Caiaphas, a careful political survivor who had already begun to see the traveler from Galilee as a problem that would have to be solved. And the village itself, Bethany, sat on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives, only about 15 stadia from Jerusalem. That is a little under 2 miles, an easy walk over the ridge. John gives us that exact distance, and the detail matters, because it means that what happened in this small place could not stay in this small place. Mourners had come out from the city. Word would travel back to the city. Bethany was close enough to the temple that whatever occurred at this grave would land, within days, on the desk of the men who ran Jerusalem. And the timing made the city more dangerous than usual. Passover was approaching. In ordinary weeks, Jerusalem held perhaps 80,000 souls, but as the feast drew near, pilgrims poured in from across the empire, and the population swelled several times over, packing the streets and filling every road that led toward the temple. The authorities were already on edge, watching for anything that might spark the crowds and bring the Roman garrison down on them. Into that tense, overcrowded, watched city, a rumor was about to arrive that a man in a nearby village had walked out of his own grave. There could not have been a worse moment, from Caiaphas's point of view, for the dead to start rising. The burial itself followed the unbending customs of the time. When a person died, they were buried the same day, before sundown. The body was washed, anointed with aromatic spices, myrrh, aloes, and wrapped tightly in long strips of linen, with a separate cloth bound over the face. Then it was laid in a rock-cut tomb, a cave carved into the limestone hillside, and a heavy stone was set or rolled across the mouth. We have found these tombs, hundreds of them, around Jerusalem and its villages. We know exactly what that sealed cave looked like, because we can still walk into the ones the centuries left behind. 4 days. The gospel repeats that number for a reason. By the 4th day, in that climate, there was no ambiguity left. The body had begun to decay, and no one in the ancient world believed there was a road back from where this man had gone. This was not a man who might still be revived. This was a sealed, decided 4-day death. That is the wall this story runs straight into. The man in the tomb had a name: Lazarus. In Hebrew, Eleazar, God has helped. He lived in that house in Bethany with his 2 sisters, Martha and Mary, this Mary being Mary of Bethany, the one who would later pour costly perfume over Jesus' feet, and not, as she is so often confused, Mary Magdalene. A different woman entirely. The household was 3, 2 sisters, and the brother they were about to lose. What we know about this family is small, but a telling. Jesus loved them. The gospel says it plainly and more than once. When the sisters first sent word that their brother was sick, the message they chose was not, "Lazarus is dying." It was, "Lord, the one you love is sick." They did not need to name him. In their household, the one you love was enough. And this is where the story takes its first turn that no one expects. Because when Jesus received that message, that the man he loved was slipping away, he did not rush. The gospel records something almost shocking, that because he loved them, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Read that slowly, not in spite of his love. Because of it, he deliberately let the situation pass the point of no return. Picture the 2 sisters during those days. They had sent their message, and then they did the hardest thing love ever does. They waited. Every set of footsteps on the road might be him. Every hour their brother sank lower, and the help they had asked for did not come, and did not come. And then it was too late, and they wrapped him in linen and rolled a stone across his grave. Whatever else you take from this story, do not rush past those 2 silent days. They are where most of our lives are actually lived, in the gap between the prayer and the answer. His disciples did not understand it, and frankly, neither do most of us. He told them, almost gently, that their friend Lazarus had fallen asleep, and that he was going to wake him. They misheard it the way we would. If he is only sleeping, they reasoned, then sleep is good. He will recover. So he said it without the veil. Lazarus has died. And then a sentence that lands like cold water. He was glad, for their sake, that he had not been there, so that they might believe. Glad. Not glad that Lazarus was dead, but glad that what was about to happen would do something in them that a quiet bedside healing never could. He was already looking past the grave to the faith that would be born on the other side of it. When he finally said it was time to go to Judea, they were alarmed. The authorities there had recently tried to stone him. To walk back toward Jerusalem now was to walk toward danger. It was Thomas, the one we remember for his doubts, who said the brave and grim thing, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." They were not expecting a miracle. They were expecting a funeral, and possibly their own. Let me stop here and ask you something directly, because this part of the story belongs to almost everyone listening. Have you ever prayed for something urgent, really prayed with everything in you, and felt that heaven was silent? That God had heard and simply waited? That by the time anything happened, it was already too late? The sisters in this story lived exactly that. They sent for the one person who could help, and he stayed away while their brother died. If you have ever stood in that particular kind of silence, I want you to tell me about it in the comments. Not as an abstraction, as something that really happened to you. I read them, and this is the story for it. By the time Jesus reached the edge of Bethany, Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. The house would have been full. In that culture, grief was not private. Friends and neighbors came out from Jerusalem and stayed for the 7 days of mourning, sitting with the family, weeping with them, sharing meals of consolation in the lamplit rooms. There were professional mourners, women whose wailing filled the courtyard. This was a public, communal sorrow, and it was loud. Stand for a moment inside the eyes of one of those visitors. An ordinary man who had walked the 2 miles out from Jerusalem to sit with a grieving family, the way custom demanded. He had come for a funeral. He expected to share a meal, murmur the words of comfort, and walk home before dark. He had heard, like everyone, the rumors about the Galilean teacher, the blind man near the temple who now could see, the things people whispered in the markets. But rumors are one thing, and a sealed grave is another. This man had buried people before. He knew what 4 days meant. Whatever was about to happen on that hillside, he was not expecting it. And that is exactly why what he saw would never leave him. The people in this story are not cardboard figures in a stained glass window. They were as certain as you are that the dead stay dead. Martha heard he was coming and went out to meet him on the road before he even entered the village. And what she said to him is one of the most human sentences in the Bible. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." It is faith and it is reproach, braided together, exactly what so many of us would have said. You could have. You didn't come. And then, almost in the same breath, she reached for hope anyway. Even now, she said, she knew God would give him whatever he asked. What Jesus said back to her became one of the great declarations of the entire Bible. He told her plainly that her brother would rise again. Martha, like any devout Jew of her day, assumed he meant the resurrection at the end of time. That hope was not invented at this tomb. It was woven deep into her people's scriptures. The prophet Ezekiel had been carried in a vision to a valley full of dry bones and watched them rattle together, take on flesh, and stand up alive as the breath of God swept over them. A picture of graves opening at the word of the Lord. The prophet Daniel had written that many who sleep in the dust of the earth would awake. Martha was standing on those promises when she answered him. She believed her brother would rise, someday, at the last day, far off at the end of history. And then Jesus did something with that distant hope that no one had ever done. He turned it into a person standing in front of her. "I am the resurrection and the life," he said. "The one who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live." He did not say he would bring resurrection. He said he was resurrection, that the power Martha had placed at the far end of time was standing on the road in front of her, in dust-covered sandals, asking her to believe. And she did. Through her tears, she gave him the answer that the whole gospel is built on. "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who was promised." She did not yet know her brother would walk out of the tomb that very afternoon. She believed before she had any proof. That is the kind of faith this story holds up to the light. Then Mary came. And here the tone of the story changes completely. Where Martha had met him standing, arguing, reasoning her way toward hope, Mary could not stand. She fell at his feet, broken, and got out only the same words her sister had said. "If you had been here." And then nothing. No theology, no, but even now. She had no more words left in her. She only wept, there in the dirt of the road, and the mourners who had followed her out of the house wept with her until the whole hillside was dissolving into grief. This is the sound Jesus walked into. Not a calm crowd waiting for a teacher, a village drowning. And the gospel tells us that when Jesus saw her weeping and saw the others weeping, something moved in him. The word John uses here is fierce. It does not simply mean he felt sad. In the original language, it carries the force of a snort, a deep internal shudder. The same word used elsewhere for anger, for indignation. He was, the text says, deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Something rose up in him at that grave that was closer to fury than to sorrow. He asked where they had laid the body. They said, "Come and see." And then come the two words. He wept. Now stand inside that moment, because this is the heart of everything. He is moments away from doing the impossible. He knows it. He has known it the whole way up the road. And still, the tears come. So what exactly is he weeping for? The people standing there gave two answers on the spot, and the gospel records both. Some looked at him and said tenderly, "See how he loved him." They read the tears as love, pure and simple. But others, and John makes sure we hear them too, muttered something sharper. Could not this man, who opened the eyes of the blind, have kept this man from dying? In other words, if you are who they say you are, why the tears? Why didn't you stop this? That is the question of the title of this video, and it was asked at the tomb itself 2,000 years ago by people who did not trust him. Here is the answer the gospel gives, and it has two strands woven together, and we miss the whole truth if we cut either one. The first strand is love that grieves. Jesus weeps because the people he loves are in agony, and he will not stand above their pain like a man who already knows the ending of a film and feels nothing during the sad parts. He enters it. He lets it land on him. His foreknowledge of the resurrection does not numb him to the reality of death in that moment. It does not turn Mary's sobbing into a minor inconvenience to be fixed. The tears are proof that his compassion is not an act. He is not performing sorrow. He feels it fully, the way only someone who is truly one of us could feel it. But there is a second strand, and it is the one almost no one talks about. And it is hidden in that fierce word the gospel chose. The indignation. He is not only sad at that grave, he is angry, not at the sisters, not at the mourners. He is angry at death itself, at the obscene wrongness of it, at the way it tears apart what God made to live, at the grief it inflicts on the people he loves. The prophet Isaiah, centuries earlier, had seen the coming one and called him a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, one who would carry our sorrows as his own. And here, at this tomb, that prophecy is breathing. The Lord of life is standing at the door of a grave, and everything in him recoils against the enemy on the other side of the stone. This is the answer to the strange two words. He did not weep because he was powerless. He wept because he was not pretending. Love grieves, even when it knows the ending. The one who holds the keys to life looked death in the face and did not shrug. He wept, and he burned, and then he acted. And that is what changes how you hear those tears. They were not about Lazarus alone. He stood at this one grave and grieved the whole reign of death over the whole human race, including, if you will let me say it, the loss that is sitting on your own chest right now. The God revealed here doesn't watch your sorrow from a safe distance. He is a God who weeps at tombs. Still moved, still burning, he came to the cave. The stone was lying across the mouth, just as the customs required, and he gave an order that must have sounded almost offensive to the people standing there. Take away the stone. Martha, ever practical, protested. Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead 4 days. She was right. By every law of nature, opening that stone would only release the smell of decay onto the mourners. But he had told her, if you believe, you will see the glory of God. They rolled the stone back, and before he did anything else, he prayed, out loud, deliberately. And the gospel lets us hear why he prayed out loud. It was, he said, for the sake of the people standing around him, so that they would believe. The prayer was not for show, and it was not for information. It was a door held open so that the crowd could see that what was about to happen came from the Father. The tears and the prayer belong together. Both of them were, in the end, for the people watching, and for the people who would one day hear the story. For you. Then he raised his voice and called into the dark mouth of the tomb. He did not say, "Rise." He said a name. "Lazarus, come out." It has been pointed out, and it is worth repeating, that he had to use the name, because if he had simply commanded the dead to come out, every grave on that hillside might have answered. He spoke to one man by name in the dark. For a heartbeat, nothing. Imagine the silence on that hillside, the mourners frozen, the sisters not daring to breathe, the visitors from Jerusalem certain they were about to watch a holy man humiliate himself in front of a rotting corpse. The stone was off. The smell was in the air. A grown man had just shouted into a tomb as though the dead could hear. Every law that had ever governed that crowd's world said the cave would stay silent. And then there was movement in the dark. The man came out. Picture it the way the people there saw it, and the gospel does not spare us the strangeness. A figure appears in the mouth of the tomb, still bound hand and foot in the linen strips, his face still wrapped in the burial cloth. He is alive, and he is shuffling, constrained, blinded by the wrappings and the sudden light. The dead man is walking, and he cannot yet free himself. And Jesus gives the last command, the human one, the tender one. Unbind him and let him go. Take the grave clothes off him. He is not a corpse anymore. Give him back his hands. What did Lazarus see in those 4 days? The gospel does not tell us, not one word, and we should respect that silence rather than fill it. Every account that claims to know what he experienced on the other side is inventing what the text deliberately withholds. The story is not about where Lazarus went. It is about who called him back. But do not imagine the story ends in joy and stays there. Because that smell of death travels, and so does the news of a man who beats it. Many who saw it believed, but others went straight to the authorities in Jerusalem, and within days the ruling council met in alarm. Picture that room. The most powerful men in the nation, the keepers of the temple, sitting in an emergency session not because a man had died, but because a man had refused to. Their fear was not theological, it was political. If the crowds kept swelling around this teacher, they reasoned aloud, Rome would notice, and Rome would come, and they would lose the temple and the nation both. And here is the bitter irony the gospel hands us. It was this miracle, this gift of life, that sealed Jesus' death. The council decided that day that he had to die. Caiaphas, the high priest, said it was better for one man to die for the people, speaking more truly than he could possibly have understood. The raising of Lazarus is the event that lit the fuse on the cross. Life given here purchased death there. And it did not stop with Jesus. The gospel adds one chilling line a little later. The chief priests planned to kill Lazarus too, because as long as he was alive and walking around Bethany, he was living proof, and people kept coming to see him and believing. Think about that for a moment. They had just been shown, beyond any argument, that this man could undo death, and their response was to plan another one. A man raised from the dead became a marked man. The walking miracle now had a price on his head. That is how hard a heart can become. To look straight at an emptied tomb and start digging a new one. But this event does not belong only to the past. Listen to me for a moment, because this is the part that is actually about you. Somewhere in your life, there is a grave. Maybe it is a literal one. A parent, a husband or wife, a child, a friend you have already buried, and a grief you carry that does not announce itself but never fully leaves. Or maybe it is a tomb of another kind, a marriage that died, a hope that decayed, a version of your life that you sealed behind a stone years ago and stopped expecting to see again. And maybe the hardest part has been the silence, the sense that if God is real and if God is good, then he is also strangely, painfully late, that he could have come and didn't. The tears at this tomb are the answer to that silence, not a tidy answer. A tear is not an argument, but it is something better. It tells you that the God revealed here doesn't hold himself above your pain. The letter to the Hebrews would later say it directly, that we do not have a distant high priest, untouched by our weakness, but one who is able to feel with us in it. He stood at the grave of someone he loved, knowing he was about to empty it, and he wept anyway, which means the tears you have cried at your own graves were not cried alone. He came to that tomb in Bethany late, on purpose, and he still wept, and then he called a dead man out by name. Hold all three of those together, because that is the whole gospel in one afternoon. He is not always early, he is never indifferent, and he has not yet said his last word over the things you have buried. If there is someone in your life right now standing in front of a grave of their own, a real one or the quieter kind, send them this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is remind a grieving person that God himself once stood where they are standing and cried. Share it with them today. And if these reconstructions of the world Jesus actually walked through mean something to you, if you want to keep standing in these streets, at these tombs, in these rooms where the oldest story in the world actually happened, then stay with us. Subscribe, and the next journey into the 1st century will find you. I will leave you with the question the whole story leaves hanging in the air. The people at the tomb saw the same tears and drew two opposite conclusions. Some saw love, and some saw failure. When you look at those tears, at the grave of someone you have lost, which do you see? Tell me honestly in the comments. I am listening.